Hello, everyone. Steve Parr here, Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network, and so glad that you are watching this webinar. We talked to you about the steps to becoming incorporated, and this is very important. And if you're watching this, it's probably because you are a candidate for membership in our network, or perhaps you're just wanting to get incorporated. But if you're a candidate for our network, we do require incorporation, and you're going to see why, because Carey's going to walk with you some of the reasons for that. And I want to introduce our guest today, Carey Hudson. Carey, welcome. How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you doing, Dr. Parr? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, brother. Carey is a pastor. He is the director of our New Church Foundation. He's also a real estate agent. Now, I will say this, neither Carey nor I, we're not lawyers, so this is not legal advice today. This is process, and it may be that you want to hire someone to walk you through incorporation, an attorney or someone, and there are sources that will do that. But probably you can do it on your own if you're willing to be patient. Now, we'll tell you, it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're probably talking about 6, 9, 12 weeks to go through this process of all the things you have to do. There's 8 steps, and I'll say this, you don't have to do them all at one time. And we always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's what you do. Take step 1 and step 2 and work your way through step 8, and you'll be fully incorporated. And there are a lot of advantages to that. So, Carey, if you would, take us through this, and I'll interrupt you occasionally with a question or a clarification. And let's talk about how to get incorporated. How do we do that? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me here, Dr. Parr, and I appreciate that. And thank you guys for downloading this link and watching. It tells me that you're serious about getting incorporated, about getting established in your community, and letting an institution, your church, outlast you. You're leaving a legacy. So good for you. You need to get some credit for that. So I'm glad that you're joining us at whatever time of day you're watching this. And so by way of introduction, there's a couple of reasons why I believe that churches need to become incorporated. First of all, it protects you. There's limited liability protection. By becoming incorporated, you're working on behalf of your corporation. In this case, it's going to be your church. So just for example's sake, if you decide to do a community block party and you rent blow up bouncy houses for kids, and hopefully nobody ever gets hurt in these things here in our association, but the reality is we live in a real world with real accidents that could happen. You need to protect yourself. If you're not incorporated and didn't rent the blow up houses and all the different products that you're renting for that community block party, then you are personally liable. But if you're incorporated and you're doing it on behalf of your church is liable. But also, in addition to this, you'll get liability protection for your church. So if something does happen, insurance will kick in, go to bat for you, and those kind of things. So protect yourself personally in today's world. In today's society, there are law schools that are holding courses now. They've been doing this for about 20 years and teaching lawyers how to sue nonprofits and churches. That's just the reality in the society that we're living in. So we've got to protect ourselves. There's also perpetual existence. If you're taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch this webinar, I know you want to try to establish a church and a ministry in your community that will outlast you. The facts of the matter is this: unless Jesus comes back, we're all going to die one day. And we want our organization to outlast us. And I know you do as well. It's positive for raising capital. People in your community may give to your ministry, may give to your church, that never step foot in your church because they hear about the good work you're doing in your community. Just an example, for example's sake, it's just close to my heart, so it's close to my mind. At North, I was pastor there for almost 20 years, and we had several business people in our community that, as far as I remember, they never came to a church service, but they gave tens of thousands of dollars. One gentleman gave $100,000 for a ministry project that we were doing. Another gentleman gave $50,000 over a 3-year period. Each year he gave $50,000 for a total of $150,000. Now, in my book, that's big money. These business people would not have taken us seriously if we didn't have, if we were not incorporated and didn't have tax exempt status. So I really encourage you to do that. And it frees you up from property tax in Gwinnett County as well. And so you don't want to have to pay property tax on the property that your church owns. And so it does free you up from that. And then enables you to have tax exemption status with the IRS as well. And I'm going to go right on into the 8 steps because this leads into that of what I want to talk about. By you becoming incorporated, and that's a requirement, by the way, with our network. And Dr. Parr, do you want to share a quick sentence or two with that?
Yeah, I just want to say it tells us that you are serious as far as being a church. Now, if you've got a Bible study in your home, God bless you, but we want to know more. It's more than a Bible study that gathers in your home, that this is a church and that you're Great Commission driven, that you're wanting to reach your community, and that you're serious about establishing a lasting church. So this is that first step. And I'll go back to your previous point too, just to clarify again to our pastors. This provides protection for your family and to your own finances to get incorporated. It's very important. So let's start with, again, as Carey said, with just writing down what is your purpose. That's the first simple step.
Yeah, great. And so when you become incorporated, you're able to apply for membership here in our network of churches in Gwinnett County. And because of that, if you gain membership with our network of churches, an instant benefit to you is you have instant tax exempt status. You'll fall underneath the umbrella for the IRS purposes to receive nonprofit status through the Gwinnett Metro Baptist Network. And so one of the things that you have to do in order to become incorporated is you have to have articles of incorporation. With that, you have to have a purpose statement. It can be a long sentence, it can be a short sentence. It's not a slogan, it's a purpose. And so that's probably another whole seminar that we need to do on how to create a purpose and for your church and goals and objectives and those kind of things. But for now, we're going to keep it short and sweet. Note, write down your purpose. It needs to be a part of your articles of incorporation. Number 2, decide on a legal name for your church and then register it with the state. We've given you the website there. We'll also have this PowerPoint presentation online at the Gwinnett Association website. You can download this PowerPoint and come back to this as well. When you go there, it's fairly user-friendly. Go to the tab Online Services and you can read that. Name reservation. So before you hit name reservation, you'll create a user account. And when you create a user account, go on and do a business search. Now, I say business, we're talking about churches here, but as far as the state is concerned, it's a business. See if that name is out there. If it's already out there, then my suggestion is you not use it. As a matter of fact, legally, you cannot use it, but you can tweak it a little bit. Just for example's sake, if your name, you want to have the name of New Hope Baptist Church Incorporated, and there is already a name registered for that in Carrollton, possibly, for example. This is hypothetical. But you really like the name New Hope. You're stuck on that. Your leadership has decided on that name. You can always tweak that name a little bit to register it legally. For example, you can say New Hope Baptist Church of Gwinnett County or New Hope Baptist Church of Lilburn. So you can tweak that name and register that name. But if there's a name already registered in the state of Georgia, you'll have to change that because you cannot take somebody else's name and vice versa. You don't want anybody to take your name once it's registered. Name reservation, you'll be given 3 opportunities with 3 different names. So you'll tweak those names just a little bit, and then the state will email you back and actually send you a letter in the mail saying this is your legal name that you registered with. I think it's $25 to register your name, then nobody else can get it. And then every year, don't forget, you need to register with the state to keep your name. And so you'll need to do that.
Yeah, and I want to clarify too, you call your church New Hope Church of Gwinnett, that's your legal name, but your DBA, doing business as, simply means you can say New Hope Church or New Hope Lawrenceville or New Hope Lilburn. You can call it what you want versus the legal name, the doing business as. It's not the same, right, Carey?
That's exactly right. And just for example's sake, I hate to keep bringing up a personal example, but it's just on my mind. The church I pastored was North Gwinnett Baptist Church Incorporated. However, on all of our publicity, we said VBS at North. Come to North this Sunday for Easter service. On Sunday mornings, we would tell our folks, welcome to North today. And so we used a shortened version of our name for publicity purposes because it was just easy to remember, sort of a catchy name. And, you don't want to say the whole name every time you introduce yourself to someone. And so so you're welcome to do that. That's not illegal, but for legal purposes, for documents, opening up a bank account, those kind of things, you'll use your full incorporated name. And you'll need to put in your name incorporation, INC, period. You can abbreviate that. I'm incorporated. So the public and the state know that you're incorporated. You don't want to do sole proprietorship. You don't want to do LLC. That's a limited liability corporation. For church purposes, it's incorporation. Okay. The next step, then you apply for your employment identification number, EIN. Now, some of you may be watching this webinar and say, well, I'm just a volunteer pastor. I'm just a lay pastor. I'm not getting paid for the church, so we don't need to do an employee identification number with the IRS. Well, I think there's a lot of benefits to that. And a couple of things. First of all, you have to have an IEN number in order to open a bank account in the church's name. You need to have this number to do any kind of legal transactions. Let's say one day you're ready to buy a piece of property and you're ready to put a church or buy a church building that's already there. You've got to have an EIN number to do any kind of business transactions in the state of Georgia. And then there's a little bit of a benefit. We don't have this law in Georgia, but in Tennessee and in Florida, I know because I've benefited from it. When you're having a retreat, you rent a retreat center or a cabin or hotel rooms. If you have an EIN number, an employer identification number, then you're able to show that to the vendor and they will not charge you sales tax. And so, like in the state of Florida, if you rent a hotel room on the beach for a youth retreat or a ladies retreat, you're able to get those hotel rooms free of tax. And in the state of Florida, sometimes that's up to 11% tax. And so that's a big savings for you as well. So have that number, know that number. I used to have it there on my desk drawer, because I had to use it all the time for different things. All right. So that's how you go. If you have any problems, feel free. I've listed my number at the end of these slides and you can call me when you come to that step, and I'll be available for you the best I can. Number 4, this is probably the longest one longest step, take you the longest time. Establish bylaws for your church. There's just a quick outline. I'm not going to go through every single one of those, but you'll need to know when board meetings are held. The law in Georgia, again, this is not legal advice for you. This is recalling it from my memory. With incorporations in the state of Georgia, you have to have recorded minutes with at least one meeting per year. It can be 10 minutes, but you need to have recorded minutes of one meetings per year. And so if you're ever audited by the IRS or any kind of legal problems happen, you can show that you met at least one time a year with your board. And when I say board, that could be your elders, your board of deacons, however you're organized as a church. You want to know your voting procedures, how to handle conflict, who can serve on the board, how you're going to create and eliminate committees and change the bylaws. GwinnettMetro.net, Dr. Parr will have underneath the resources tabs an example of articles of incorporation. I believe you can still go to LegalZoom.com and get some free service out of them as well. But Dr. Parr, do you have a comment?
And you misspoke there. You said articles of incorporation. We'll get sample bylaws there.
Bylaws.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
sample bylaws that you can use. It's a template you can plug and play, so to speak, and it gives you all the core essentials that you need, but you can write your own bylaws. But instead of starting from scratch, you're a step or two ahead because of this template that we've got. So please take advantage of that.
Yes, that's right. So, all right, good. Thank you. All right. So establish the bylaws for your church. And these are things you really want to think about because they're going to outlast you. And so you want to make sure your church.
Hey, Carey, let me say there too, a lot of pastors say, well, bless God, we take the Bible. Well, yeah, we do too. The bylaws give a clarification for procedure. And if you're ever in a legal situation, the judge may or may not be a Baptist, may or may not be a Christian. He's not going to look to the Bible. He's going to look to your guiding documents. And that's what these are that tell you procedurally how you operate. So bylaws are important. And you might have just a simple set of bylaws, but there are some things you need in there, such as these things Carey mentions in this list. So do not overlook this, the importance of your bylaws. Again, not to supplement or supplant the Bible, but to talk about procedure for your church and how you conduct your business in context of what we believe about the Bible.
Yeah, and with that, I'll say this as another little side note. In today's society, I think we're going to see more and more people that are secular. They are anti-church, anti-religious establishments. They're going to be coming into our churches, I believe, just to cause a ruckus. And so we've got to have things in place so you can vote them out of your church, so they really have no legal say-so or standing on decisions for your church. And your bylaws really protect you from, for lack of a better word, all the craziness that's out there today in our society.
I'll add quickly too, Carey, that pastor, it protects you. God forbid you ever get into conflict with your church, but it shows process for removal of a pastor. And sometimes that's necessary, by the way. But it could protect the congregation also, so you don't have a rogue pastor who they can't release. But it does identify when you're not in conflict in advance of a worst case scenario. Here's how we deal with the conflict or the removal of a pastor, staff member, et cetera, or the call of a pastor. Likewise, how that happens, because pastor, none of us live forever, and you want your church again to outlive you, so to speak. So what is the process for calling a new pastor if something unforeseen happens to you and suddenly you're gone and you're not there to give guidance? The bylaws give your congregation guidance on next steps to identify and find a new pastor so you can have a legacy that lives on.
Right, that's good thoughts. And I'll add one more thing too. As pastors, we have all these stories. And so I'll just talk about voting procedures real quickly. It can be very simple. Your bylaws can be very simple. At North Gwinnett Church, where I pastored, we only voted on 3 things: buying and selling of land and property. We voted on our budget, and we voted on new staff people as a church. That's it. We didn't vote on colors, carpet, what kind of ministry we were going to establish. We didn't do any of those things. So that can be very simple and streamline that, or it can be very detailed, however you feel like God's leading you to lead your church. Okay. Number 5, decide on a registered agent to be listed with your state. This is not a big deal. They just require it to have somebody they can contact on behalf of the church. It can be you. I had our financial secretary become the registered agent, but it can be you. I looked at several churches in Gwinnett County. It was the pastor. Basically, you're going to be the liaison for any kind of legal documentation. If the Secretary of State needs to contact you, they know where to contact you. Put a good address in there, and then remember to change that if you move, or your agent that you decide to represent the church moves as well. They don't have a lot of legal authority because you are incorporated, remember? And so the board has the legal authority, but the agent is just the liaison to receive mail and to send mail and that kind of thing. They just need a representative that they can look at. And this is online with the state. So you can be that person or somebody else in your leadership team. Number 6.
Sure, go back real quickly. Do you
Yes.
go back to the original website that you gave? Just give that website again. They would go to where their agent is registered. Where do they go to?
Yeah, where the agent is registered, that will be, let me think real quick. That is the Georgia Secretary of State. That is going to be back at slideshow number 2. So that's slideshow number 2. Slide number 2. You can go back and get that website there. All right. And it gives you the instructions there as well. We will also have, by the time you are listening to this recorded webinar, we will have an actual professional printed copy of all these slides in just a trifold flyer. So if you want to come by, get as many copies as you want to here at the associational office, and you can take them back to your deacons, your elders, and then you can walk them through the steps, and then you can assign it out to different people in your leadership team as well, and then walk them through the importance of becoming incorporated. Number 6, elect or appoint your leaders. I put in there elect or appoint because maybe if you're watching this webinar, you're just getting started. You may have 5 people coming to your Bible study in your living room. So you might have to appoint at first your leaders, and that's okay. Just an example of some of your leaders, and this will be in your articles of incorporation. You can have a CEO, and you'll also register this with the state when you go and register your articles of incorporation with the state. You can give any title that you want to, president, CEO, vice president, secretary, or treasurer and CFO. You can have 2 or you can have 3. My suggestion is try to have 3 leaders. And here's another suggestion, is try to have no one on your leadership team. And this is called, according to state terminology, the board of directors. Now you might set it up as your elders or the board of directors. And then within that elder body, you might decide on a president, vice president, and secretary.
How about deacons? Could you do deacons?
You could do deacons. You could do your deacons, and then you would have a CEO of the, if the deacon is the deciding body of your church, you have CEO, vice president, treasurer, or secretary and treasurer of your deacon. So whatever the terminology that you use, you'll see on the state website, they'll call them board of directors. So don't get confused with the terminology.
And to be clear, you wouldn't have to call that person the CEO or call yourself CEO, but legally you're registered as a chief executive officer. And so it could be chairman of deacons or a head elder or lead pastor, but you identify that person as the CEO of your organization. Would that be accurate? Okay.
Good thoughts. Yes, good thoughts. And so terminologies change, but you'll see on the website at Georgia Secretary of State, they'll use the term president, CEO, vice president. So don't get confused on that. So it can be chairman of deacons, whatever title you want to use, but appoint your leaders. Now, this is not legal advice. This is just good common sense advice. All right. It's not illegal to have you, your wife, and your children as the registered legal leaders and board in the state of Georgia. However, because you are a church with nonprofit status, you represent the community, you're receiving donations from the community and members. My suggestion is I highly encourage you, have no one related to you in any form or fashion, your uncle, aunt, anybody as a part of your leadership team. It just is a good, it's keeping you out of rumors. And Dr. Parr told me, Steve, Dr. Parr and I used to work together on the church staff. And one of the things I remember him saying, it's not the, if a rumor is true, that may not kill you. It's even if a rumor is false, could still kill you. You want to be above reproach on every single issue that you have. And you can say, look, we're not a family here trying to start this church. We have 3 different people, all 3 different backgrounds, and we're trying to start something for God's kingdom here. And it's just above reproach. It's an image it's an image thing more than a legal thing. Does that make sense? All right. So hopefully you'll take that word of encouragement. Number 7, then you finally, when you come to this step, and I know it's a long step for you because people have every kind of suggestion in the world if you have a leadership team formed around you already, and people love to give you advice all the time, and not necessarily bad advice, it's good advice, but you'll have so much information thrown at you on how to do the bylaws. But then articles of incorporation are different than bylaws.
And Carey, let me stop there for a moment. The submit, we're going to drop the E there when we'll correct this before we post it on the site there for submit. We're not going to submit anything. See that?
No, you're right. Yes, I saw another misspelling, and somebody I'm sure on this webinar saw it early a few slides back. So I did catch that. I was hoping to get away with something.
But you correct me if I'm wrong. So we'll get to step 7. Really, right now, we're really pulling together those first 6 steps at this point. We're getting incorporated by, we're pulling all this information in one place, one time, it looks like. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yes, everything's on the same website. You'll just upload these documents. Now, let me say this too. Articles of incorporation are required by the state of Georgia. However, bylaws are not. But my high encouragement to you, suggestion to you, is go ahead and submit the bylaws to the state. So it is recorded on the state level. Nobody can go in and change those. It's recorded on the state level. So if whatever happens in the future, if somebody says, well, here, I've got some bylaws and this is how we're to operate, you go, well, no, those are all made up. I mean, we don't like to think that people will do those kind of things, but they could. You can go back to the state because you or somebody after you can go back to the state and say, no, these are the original bylaws. So upload it, even though it's not legally required. It's a good suggestion to be able to have your church outlast you and outlast you with good stability as well. So some of the things are articles of incorporation. You can get this again on a lot of different websites, sometimes for free or for just a small fee, and you plug in these these items: your church's name. Remember, you've already registered it, so you know it's a good name. Type of nonprofit, your purpose statement, your agent could be you, somebody else, your name of your incorporator. That's a big title. All that is just the person filing the documents. That might be you. And name of your directors. Again, the state of Georgia will call them directors, but it could be your elders or deacons. And then a statement whether it's membership based or not. And that's important to file that in your articles of incorporation, because you don't want anybody coming in and causing a stink in your church and that you cannot eliminate from your membership. You don't want them to misrepresent you.
Hey, let me go back for one more quick clarification. Under names of directors, is it elders, deacons, or pastors? Also,
yes, it could. Yes, it could be. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. All right, and then so that's number 7. I mean, we're almost to the end. It sounds real simple and short, but if you're doing this, I know the time it is. I'm here to encourage you and help you, because I've been exactly where you are. It's a tough road, and I certainly understand that. And then the very last one of the steps here, that you can go to online services, then you'll create or register a business. And those are the tabs, those are the directions to go in there. So friendly, but if you get called, feel free to call me. Don't waste a lot of time. Learn on the back of my mistakes, all right? And the issues that I've had as well. And then the very last thing, some of you may not do this, but obtain any required licenses and permits if you need them. And here's an example of that. You may operate as a church, but you also might have a soup kitchen. You might provide soup and sandwiches every Thursday afternoon for the people in the community. Make sure you go ahead and get a county permit to do that. You don't want to have 100 people expecting to get fed on Thursday afternoon, and the county has come in and shut you down on Thursday morning, and you cannot serve the needs of your community. So go ahead, get legal, get permitted, get the license that you need to do that. For the most part, most churches are not going to do that at this stage in the game. But if you need to do that, especially any kind of license and permits, whatever that might be, if you have I guess the best example is a soup kitchen type thing. All right, and then just in summary, and then maybe a couple of thoughts, just so you'll know. When you become incorporated and you get the instant tax exempt status here by becoming a member of our Gwinnett Metro Network, make sure you go to the county. In full vulnerability here, I made this mistake. I didn't register with the county. I just assumed, hey, we're nonprofit, they'll know. We got a large tax bill because we had 17 acres of land in Gwinnett County. And if you've owned land in Gwinnett County, you can imagine what the tax bill on that thing was. And I had to go down, file appeals, et cetera, et cetera. We were able to finally reduce that tax until I could file paperwork to say that we were a nonprofit. But learn from my mistake. You have to go to the county courthouse here in Lawrenceville to file paperwork. I think you have to do it in person. You might be able to do it online now. This has been years ago, to make sure the county knows you're tax exempt. Now, with that does not include the storm water fee. You'll get a bill from the county every year for storm water. That is the bill that they give for every business in Gwinnett County. That is your fee, depending upon how much, well, I forget the engineering name for it, but how much roof space you have, how much parking lot space you have, how much porous area you have, and an imporous area of the water runoff. They calculate, engineers have some kind of formula to calculate that, and they will send you a bill every year for that. That has to be paid. And the reason why that's paid is because our county commissioners call it a fee, not a tax. And so therefore, churches are not exempt from that. And then don't forget to register annually with the state of Georgia. I went on last night to look at a few churches to give you an example of churches that are registered with the state. Actually, quite a few of them are not registered with the state, I think because they forgot to file their annual registration. So put it on your calendar, make sure you do that. If you do forget 1 year, I believe, again, don't hold me to this, this is not legal advice, but I do think the state of Georgia gives you 3 years to get it back up to pay your fees and fines, to keep your name and to be registered with the state. but don't let those 3 years pass, because then you'll lose your name and you'll have to start all over again. So just put it on your calendar to do it every year. I think it's a $25 fee, very inexpensive, but it's just one of those things we have to do as churches. And so that is it. But here's a slide of my name and my number and my email address there. So if you have any kind of questions with this or anything else, if I can encourage you, pray for you in any way possible, I'm available for you. And I know I speak for Dr. Parr as well.
Thank you so much, Carey. This is helpful. And pastors, I know it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. Don't not be overwhelmed. Remember the advantages, the legal protections, the tax exempt status that comes with this. And it allows people, again, to give contributions to your church and to receive a deduction from their taxes. And that encourages people to give, and even non-members to give, because you are a charitable organization once you're incorporated, but not if you're not incorporated. So a lot of advantages. So again, it's tougher the first time. Once the re-registering is the easy part. So it's that first time through. Again, it does take several weeks. Again, if you want legal guidance, you can pay someone to walk you through this, or if you want to do it yourself, Carey, I will be glad to counsel you as best we can. And I hate red tape. I know you do too. But again, I think there's advantages, outweigh the disadvantages for sure. And again, to be a member of our network, you do need to be incorporated. That lets us know you are a genuine church and not just simply a home Bible study group. But you're, again, wanting your church to outlast you and to be serving this community for years and years, even decades to come. So that's our goal. Carey, thank you so much for being with us today. And by the way,
thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody watching.
Yeah, Steve at gmba.org. You've got my number, pastors. You know me. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time as we gather or have a webinar for training. Thank you so much for watching. You take care. Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye. Bless you all.